My name is AMILCAR, founder and owner of Her Apparel, a mother's clothing brand. Tough Startup has been one of the best things that ever happened to my life, if not the best.
My name is Modula Menfati, founder, farm manager, ML Poultry. Before Tough Startup 2018, this used to be my poultry house with about 200 chickens. And today, ML Poultry has just built a new farm with a production capacity of up to 4,000 chickens.
I'm Ivo Lawrence Mendy. I'm the CEO and the founder of Cameco. The Tough Startup, we're able to register the company in Ghana as a limited, let's Ride Africa Ghana Limited.
I urge every single young entrepreneur out there to give it a try. It's a life-changing experience.
Welcome to Star TV News, the headlines this hour with me, Maymuna Diouf. President Barrow cheers Gambians to take advantage of job opportunities in the country. Fatou Ceesay claims UDP betrayed President Barrow. Fatoumata Jawara to UDP, you can't kill the truth. UN rights experts calls for victim-centered approach to transitional justice. Gambia advances to Wafu semis following win over Liberia. On the international scene, Guinea-Bissau election, former PMs advance to runoff vote. Namibia votes in tight polls overshadowed by corruption scandals. Iraq condemns attack on Iranian consulate in Najaf. Those were the headlines, and now the news in details. His Excellency President Adama Barrow on Wednesday afternoon visited Nyamina Dankunku on his Meet the People tour and spoke to the locals on some of the available opportunities Gambians should have taken advantage for a better living. He advises Gambians, especially youths, to make it a duty by taking advantage of the multiple job opportunities in this country. Ajaka Desani reports.
All corner shops around our neighborhood are manned by foreign nationals. 95% of the bakeries, big stores in the market, and even tailoring shops are mostly in the hands of foreign nationals. But the president wants that to change. Gambians can do most of these jobs, but why aren't they taking advantage of them? President Barrow queried. In Mauritania, for example, all the stores in the markets are manned by Mauritanian citizens. Gambians can also do the same as them. I am urging our people, especially our youth, to tap into these opportunities and boost the economy of the Gambia. He stressed people in Gisadi, Nyamina Dankunku, responding to some of the challenges mentioned by the locals in Nyamina Dankunku. Honorable Hamadba, Minister of Tourism and Culture, says government have made surveys in Dankunku, and for a start, the people of Sinchunjugari will benefit from a borehole as work is about to commence. Nyamina Dankunku is politically dominated by NRP under the leadership of Honorable Amadba. The National Assembly member for Dankunku was not in attendance during the president's meeting in his constituency, but he was highly commended for the amazing job they said he is doing. Honorable Samba Jallow, NRP's member of parliament in Nyamina Dankunku, who is also the minority leader in the House of Representatives in the Gambia, is said to be uniting the people of Nyamina but also fighting for good governance and democracy in the National Assembly. It was also observed that many of the people in attendance were mainly from the NRP camp. They all together with their leader Hamadba declared their support and loyalty to President Barrow. Honorable Ba was visibly excited to see his party supporters stretching their muscles in the presence of the president. For Star TV News, Ajaka Desani.
A huge crowd welcomed President Barrow in Willingaraba on Wednesday, November 27th, and Fatou Ceesay, who was the most recognized among the speakers, says that President Adama Barrow was cruelly betrayed by his former party. The United Democratic Party UDP President Adama Barrow held his first meeting in Lower River region at Willingaraba, just on the highway going towards Jarosoma. Jacqueline Colley files in this report.
Prior to that meeting, the usual handing over of the president's entourage took place at the Pakaliba Bridge between the governors of CRR and LRR. However, while addressing the crowd that welcomed the president, a former member of the UDP and vice chairperson of the Barrow Youth for National Development, Fatou Ceesay, accused the UDP of betraying Barrow. She explained the sacrifices that President Barrow had for UDP and Gambians in general. Barrow sacrificed everything he had for UDP, his wealth, family and time, but still they chose to betray him. He appointed Ousainou Darboe as minister and later vice president, but they still wanted more. We were all members of the United Democratic Party, but they have now turned to be jealous and selfish people who are ready to do anything for one person's interest only, she accused. The former UDP stalwart said she supports President Barrow and urged all Gambians to support what is right and not jealous people. President Barrow stands for what is right and best for the Gambia. I encourage all of you to register in the next registration process and get a voter's card to enable you to vote for President Barrow in the next presidential elections, she advises the supporters. Cisse lamented that Jara has been sidelined for many years, even for electricity, but that will soon be history. Meanwhile, the people of Wellingaraba and its surroundings urged President Barrow and his government to look into the issue of ID cards. They lamented that to access an ID card is a big challenge for them in Jara. They said it takes a long process before one gets this national document with so many questions to answer. Sometimes, one is asked to produce a document of his parents even if they had passed away decades ago. In some cases, even by producing a birth certificate is not enough to satisfy the officials in charge. So they want the president to address the situation as soon as possible. Jacqueline Coley, Star TV News.
Honorable Dembasau of the Gambia Democratic Congress, GDC, and National Assembly member for Nyamina West, has insinuated that President Adama Barrow is the one and only supreme leader of the Gambia. Honorable Sow made these claims during the President's Meet the People tour in his constituency. Dado Cham sends us this report.
The young Scorpions continue to impress at the youth tournament with the 1-0 win on Wednesday, 27 November, midweek final group match, and in Matan Boj and his charges through on the slightest dent, but with a semi-final bid. The Gambia as favourites in the tournament could only settle for the deserved 1-0 win, having known Liberia as fierce opponents stemming from their 2018 contest in the median Wafu Under-20 tourney in Monrovia, where they faced off at the final, with the Gambia triumphantly over the host to claim the coveted trophy. The young Scorpions started pretty well with significant opportunities but couldn't find the back of the net, which continued until at the break. Moments later, coach Matan Boj changed in forward Alub Fadera and Buba Jammeh to strengthen the Gambian up front, which paid off for the young Scorpions as Fadera chipped in for a beautiful assist in the penalty area that clutches to a hungry Momodu Bojang to tap into the net, denying the goalkeeper just at the brink of regular time, and Gambia celebrated the qualifications to the semi-finals. Reacting to the game at a post-match press conference, head coach Young Scorpions Gaffer Matan Boj expressed pride over his lad for a great fight. Our primary goal is to develop these young potentials and prepare them for a senior call-up and become professionals. He said the Gambia could have finished the game in the first half but commended his counterparts for a good fight. We tried all formations, but our message has always been to play forward and score goals, he says. Having now secured the semi-final spot, the Gambia will now wait for their opponents in Group A that plays on Friday for a date to the semis on December 4th. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Jacqueline Coley.
Fatoumata Jawara on Wednesday insisted UDP leaders in Talinding resorted to character assassination after they realized they could not kill the truth. The UDP leadership in Talinding constituency on 17 November branded Mrs. Jawara a rotten potato that needed to be removed from the bag. Binta Koli reports.
Fatmata Jawara is among 8 UDP members of the National Assembly that has been expelled from the party after they were convicted of conducting themselves in a way that was not in conformity with the party's principle. The expel of Fatmata Jawara, Bilai Tunkara, Sekuba Ajaju, Seku Marong, Baba Galle Jallow, Omar Dabo, Ablai Cisse and Alhaji Jawara brought to an end months of speculation over their membership of the UDP. The UDP leadership in Talinding constituency, of which Fatmata Jawara served as its National Assembly member, held a press conference on 17 November, where it held the party's national leadership in sacking Mrs. Jawara and brutally branding her as a rotten potato that needed to be removed from the bag. Mrs. Jawara held her own press conference where she clapped back at the so-called committee. She blasted them, saying the national executive accuse me of not attending party functions. How can I attend party functions when the executive have removed me from the executive WhatsApp page where information is disseminated? Let me make it very clear that I have attended all rallies of the United Democratic Party except that of Basse and Jarume Koto. Even though I was removed from the WhatsApp group and expelled now, I constantly paid my monthly contribution of $2,000 until this November. The so-called executive committee that was not elected in Congress held a press conference conducted in a manner considered as mere campaign which involved intentional and premeditated efforts to undermine my reputation and credibility. During the press conference, the so-called executive committee labeled me as a rotten potato that deserved to be removed from the bag. I want to let them know that they can't kill the truth, so they tried to assassinate the character. Famata is a clean and honest citizen who only believes in the execution of the truth no matter what. The purpose was only to discourage and weaken the support base behind me. The press conference stated that I have abdicated my responsibilities. This unfounded and misleading statement can only come from those that are not interested in the development of our constituency. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Binta Koli.
A United Nations human rights expert has urged the Gambian authorities to put victims at the center of the transitional justice process and to put all the necessary measures in place to guarantee that the crimes of the past will not recur or go unpunished. In a meeting with journalists yesterday, the UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion of truth, justice, reparation and guarantees of non-recurrence, Fabian Salvioli, has welcomed the progress already achieved in the transitional justice process. This interviewed by Amadou Barry.
At the end of my visit, I draft provisional report. That report has checks and balances of the work of the Truth Commission, of the needed of the accountability for perpetrators of the human rights violations, the process of institutional reform, including the constitutional review of the country.
Okay. And mainly currently, how is the situation of the transitional justice in the country?
The Commission of Truth is doing a great job. That's clear. The hearings are public. Every person could follow from TV or radio the hearings of the Commission. Is a lack of participation of some victims who feel fear still, so the Commission should move towards the victims for a comprehensive participation or for a census of the victims. Provide rehabilitation, enough rehabilitations for the victims of the serious human rights violations, and establish an adequate reparation programs for the victim, and finally security sector reform and vetting process.
And now on the international scene, two former prime ministers will compete in a runoff to become Guinea-Bissau's next president. The Electoral Commission has announced, with incumbent Jose Mario Vaz failing to advance to the second round of voting after a term made by political infighting and corruption. Domingos Simões Pereira topped Sunday's presidential election with 40% votes, and Umaru Sissoko Embalo came second with 28%. The Commission announced on Wednesday they will face off in the second round on December 29th. Al Jazeera's Nicholas Haig reports from Bissau.
An uncomfortable past lays hidden in retired General Watan's closet. These are pictures of men he commanded, some of whom killed political opponents. He says, "I'm not ashamed of what I've done. This was part of our struggle." After a failed attempted coup in 1987, Nalai was released from prison and put in charge of the military in the early 2000s. During that period, there were multiple political assassinations and another coup.
As a commander, of course I ordered to kill the enemy. I have not lost any soldiers and won all my battles. And of course, we killed some of our people because they were collaborating with the enemy.
The Guinean Human Rights League says hundreds have died from political violence since independence, but no one has ever been prosecuted. Both presidential candidate Umaro Embalo Sissoko and Domingo Simoes Pereira are calling for national unity.
We have to bring Guineans to peace and propose something positive. If we keep on looking back to the mistakes that we have made, chances are we're going to repeat them. We have to learn from those experiences, but project a positive Guinea-Bissau.
Among the dead is AMILCAR Cabral, the founding father of Guinea-Bissau. 25 years after his death, Cabral's daughter says it's too soon for justice.
The state is not functional, and before we can have justice, we need to rebuild the state.
10 years after setting up a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, no investigations have taken place, and the bodies of many of those who were killed are still missing. General Watalai says those who have been killed were buried in mass graves somewhere outside the capital Bissau and in the countryside. Yet none of these sites have been unearthed. And while the aim of this commission is to bring face-to-face families of the victims and perpetrators, there are those who want to keep Guinea-Bissau's troubled history buried in the past. 10 military commanders are under UN sanction for their involvement in coups. General Watanalai says the killings were in the name of the nation. There is hope that with a new president, the country will be able to come to terms with its past, so that the people of Guinea-Bissau can finally move forward. Nicholas Hawk, Al Jazeera, Bissau.
At least 19 people have been killed during another rebel attack in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Fighters from a group called the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, are suspected of being behind the attack on a village near the city of Ocha. The ADF is accused of being behind a string of recent massacres around Beni, which sparked the violent protests against the UN mission and the Congolese army. The UN says one of its peacekeepers killed one of the 6 protesters who died in the recent days. Similar protests are also taking place in Goma, North Kivu's provincial capital. Al Jazeera's Catherine Soy reports from the provincial capital, Goma.
Another tense day in Beni. They're burying Mohindo Obadi, a protester shot dead by a policeman on Saturday. The policeman was later killed by an angry mob. They marched through the city with his body in a casket, going to the area where he was shot in the head. Obadi is one of 6 people who have been killed since the protest started over the weekend. People here are angry, and their anger is directed to the UN peacekeeping mission called MONUSCO. They blame the peacekeepers for failing to protect them from attacks from an armed group in the area called Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF. The UN mission in Beni has also been accused of using excessive force on protesters.
One of our peacekeepers shot dead a protester who was throwing a Molotov cocktail at the peacekeepers. So we are still in the process of verifying all the facts and fact-checking the reports we have received.
In the midst of all this, another tragedy happened. An early morning attack by ADF on a village about 30 kilometers from Beni. More than a dozen people hacked to death with machetes, some of them decapitated. The anger on the streets of Beni is also being felt many kilometers south in North Kivu's provincial capital, Goma. Protesters here have expressed their frustration. Police have been deployed to keep them from getting to important MONUSCO bases.
This is just a small group of people who have managed to regroup after police earlier this morning fired tear gas at protesters and also fired live bullets in the air to disperse them. They say they just want peace. This is a peaceful march in support of what is going on in Beni. They say these killings must stop. They also say the United Nations mission called MONUSCO must leave this country.
Their message was clear. They told us no matter what force is used to remove them from the streets, they'll keep coming back until the demands of the people of Beni are met.
We are tired. I come from Beni. Our people are being slaughtered. The UN and our soldiers are there and doing nothing. Why then are all these forces there if not to protect our people?
They finished their protest at a police station where they paid their last tribute to Mohindo Obado. And back in Beni, he was buried by family, friends, and hundreds of other protesters determined to keep the pressure on until the violence stops. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Goma.
Polls have closed in Namibia's parliamentary and presidential elections. The vote is being seen as a major test for the governing SWAPO party, which has been in power for nearly 30 years. There are fears there could be post-election violence. Al Jazeera's Haru Mutasi reports.
Namibia's ruling SWAPO party has been in power since 1990, when the country gained independence from South Africa. But this could be a tough election for President Hage Geingob, who's running for a second term. A corruption scandal involving the country's fishing industry could taint his party's image. Al Jazeera's investigative unit and the anti-secrecy group WikiLeaks uncovered evidence of government officials accepting bribes or kickbacks from Iceland's biggest fishing firm in exchange for lucrative fishing rights. The Fisheries Minister and Justice Minister have so far resigned. The President was asked about the scandal shortly after voting.
We will deal with corruption. We declared war on corruption. We have taken steps. Iceland must also do it. Corruption came from there. You are coming to corrupt our people. We will deal with ours, and you must deal with yours.
Opposition parties, what Namibians implicated, held to account.
Cabinet cannot investigate itself, and we want to get to the bottom of this matter, and we are calling for a judicial inquiry where a prominent judge is appointed and people in the fishing industry could be, without fear of favor, come and report cases and whistleblow on the matters that are happening.
Namibia is a relatively small country, but it has a lot of natural resources. It's estimated a fifth of its citizens live in poverty. A recession and a drought is making life more difficult for the poor. Rising unemployment and inequality could also erode some of the ruling party's popularity. 5 years ago, Geingob won the presidential election with 87% of the vote.
There are seeds of fermenting discontent, but I don't think we're going to see those really come to fruition for this election. Perhaps in another 5 years, there will be a candidate, an opposition candidate or an independent candidate who can really give SWAPO a run for its money, both in terms of, an opposition party and a presidential candidate.
The opposition in Namibia is not united. SWAPO, like other former liberation movements in southern Africa, still enjoys support from the black majority. Many see it as the party that for now represents black interests. But some political analysts predict the result could be close. And the military says it is on high alert in case there is post-election violence. Haru Matasa, Al Jazeera.
Anti-government protesters in Iraq have set fire to the Iranian consulate in the Shia holy city of Najaf. They accuse Tehran of propping up Iraq's government, which they have been ruling against for 2 months. The protest started because many Iraqis wanted the government to provide better services and jobs and tackle corruption. But the demonstration have brought in to include protests against what they say is Iran's undue influence in Iraq. Al Jazeera's Victoria Gadinbai reports.
Hundreds of anti-government protesters stormed the compound of the Iranian consulate in Najaf, setting fire to tyres and blankets and replacing the Iranian flag with an Iraqi one. Analysts say the symbolic importance of the attack in a Shia-majority city cannot be understated.
This is the city where the Ayatollah Khomeini used to live. It's considered to be, the heart of the Shia Muslim world. And Iran thought that it had the population, the Iraqi Shia population, on its side in terms of its, regional policies. Clearly, that's not the case.
Protesters say Iran is exerting too much power in Iraq. They want the Iraqi government to take action to limit it. It's the second time this month that an Iranian consulate has been targeted by Iraqi protesters. 3 weeks ago, security forces killed 4 demonstrators in the city of KABRAL. Both attacks feed into the wider anti-government protest movement that's engulfed Iraq since October.
It's unclear, what options the government in Iran has in response to these protests. I don't think they have very good options. And so I suspect right now there's deep panic and paranoia in Tehran over what happened today in Najaf.
The challenge for Iran is how to respond without alienating the Shia community, upon which it's relied to expand its regional influence. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
And before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. President Barrow cheers Gambians to take advantage of job opportunities in the country. Fatou Ceesay claims UDP betrayed President Barrow. Fatoumata Jawara to UDP, you can't kill the truth. UN rights experts calls for victim-centered approach to transitional justice. Gambia advances to Wafu semis following win over Liberia. That's all for this edition of the news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Thank you.
Founder and owner of Her Apparel, a mother's clothing brand. Tough Startup has been one of the best things that ever happened to my life, if not the best.
My name is Modula Menfati, founder, farm manager, ML Poultry. Before Tough Startup 2018, this used to be my poultry house with about 200 chickens. Today, ML Poultry has just built a new farm with a production capacity of up to 4,000 chickens.
I'm Ivo Lawrence Mendy. I'm the CEO and the founder of Cameco. The Tough Startup, we're able to register the company in Ghana as a limited, let's Ride Africa Ghana Limited.
I urge every single young entrepreneur out there to give it a try. It's a life-changing experience.